everyone. My name is Shintia Revina. Currently, I work for RISE Indonesia Country Research Team, and I'm based in the SMERU Research Institute, Jakarta. And today I'm happy to share one of our recent papers from a study called Teacher Diary. And in this presentation, I will talk about the experience of becoming a teacher from novice teacher point of view. And I will discuss how policy have shaped the novice teacher professional identity formation in their first few years of teaching. So as a background, the reason why we study the early career teachers is because these teachers are in the process of transition from teacher education, where they learn about what are ideals to the real teaching job. So they are in the phase of figuring out what matters in teaching and the teaching profession. And these years are critical for mediating teacher personal attributes and demands from the profession. So to us, documenting teachers' experience during this stage can provide better understanding on what these young teachers been through, their struggles, how they cope, and how all this affect how these teachers think about teaching and the profession. And from there, we believe that we can identify what we can do to support novice teachers to have better experience in the beginning of their career. And another thing that brought us to come up with this study is the fact that international education literature has little attention to the subjective experience of teachers, because most of studies in the area of teacher policies have focused on quantitative evaluations of the impact of policies on teacher behavior as employee, and only a few qualitative works that outline the way teachers make sense of their experience, relationship, and themselves, and how all this interact together, affecting teachers' perspective about their professional life and behaviors as an educator. And for Indonesia, this study is of utmost importance because in the last 2 decades, we have multiple attempts to reform teacher performance, but as you know, yet no significant improvement made in terms of our teaching quality. Among others, the policies that have been rolled out so far are the teacher certification allowance that have been discussed in the infamous double for nothing paper. I believe some of you may know about this paper and this policy, and also the policy on additional year of training for pre-service teacher. And given our ministries continuously review and amend policies, especially during Minister Makarim era, we think it is critical to conduct a study that can explain how the existing policies on teacher have actually affected teacher perspective in relation to their professional life and behavior as an educator. And so we hope this study can provide insight to future policy changes. In other similar contexts, previous studies have actually highlighted the extent to which teacher policies have influenced novice teacher identity formation. And one common finding is that teacher policy and working condition in low and middle income country context have shaped teacher professional identity to a greater extent than teacher personal attributes. In Ghana, for example, the majority of teachers in one study expressed their disappointment with poor service and working condition, more specifically because these teachers mentioned about the low status and insufficient benefits received from teaching profession in comparison with other jobs. And in Tanzania, actually, while many young teachers often identify themselves as hard workers, the policies that have not prioritized good performance often disincentive these young teachers. And these teachers actually hope that better employment policies, such as the performance model of professionalism that can strengthen teacher accountability, can be implemented and lead to a more positive working culture in their public school system. And in Chile, there have been reported that there is high percentage of novice teacher attrition rate due to teachers' dissatisfaction with school context and working condition. This has led to a high attrition rate within 5 years of working. And even for teachers with improvement in self-efficacy, there's also a study that's reporting low professional satisfaction during this period, and this largely determine their decision to leave the teaching post. So in this study, we try to draw lesson from Indonesian novice teacher. We collect data from 16 novice primary school teachers using narrative analytical approach in total for 2 years. So teachers were required to write a reflective journal entry every other month for the course of 2 years. And between journal entries, we interviewed the teachers by phone to elaborate on or clarify information they wrote in their writings. And analysis in this paper aim to identify the key themes in the professional identity development of the novice teachers and highlight the strong influence and shortcomings of teacher policy on their life experience. And we follow the methods that rely on paradigmatic analysis in 5 steps, and they are, and we start by reading the teacher's narrative, written narratives to make sense the teacher's stories and to familiarize ourselves with the stories. And then we refine and expand the initial categories, and then we underline the excerpts from each story that represent the different categories. And then we analyze the teacher response from the phone survey as well. Then we rediscuss and expand the emerging categories based on the teacher's verbal narratives. Then at the end, we triangulated our interpretation and in-depth discussion to determine the final categories. So overall, while we have determined a specific topic in each journal writing period for over 2 years, at the end of this study, we actually grouped teacher stories into 4 big themes. And these include the initial motivation to enter teaching profession, beliefs about teaching and the teaching profession, satisfaction with working condition, and teacher commitment to teaching profession and their career aspiration. So on the motivation to enter teaching profession, for example, teacher stories can be further classified into intrinsic value of teaching, making social contributions, advised by parents or family members with teaching background. And sadly, some teachers mentioned that they choose teacher training program because they are not accepted into any other program. So teaching is their last resort. And in relation to working condition, some teachers develop perception that their ultimate goal is to win civil service tenure upon graduation from pre-service teacher education. Quite many of them mentioned that. And then because working casually as a contract teacher will leave them in an unfavorable situation, such as unrealistic workload, teaching and non-teaching, basically just to get additional income. So all this have made them less focused on teaching quality. So focusing on teaching quality is actually their second or third, if not their last priority. And not to mention that young teachers also, the young teachers with good skills in using technology, also mentioned that they've been busy with helping schools and older teachers in the school to do school administrative and even financial reports that now everything is digitalized. And in principle, the existing policies on teachers at school or at national level, including recruitment, induction, career, and pay structure, are not taking sides of on teacher professional growth. So in conclusion, our teachers actually have experienced lack of supports during their formative years, and they felt unprepared for the classroom realities and school realities, which is also resulted from the demand and complexities at school and policy level. So our findings indicated that the existing policies do not prioritize learning quality or teacher professional and personal growth. And some key results, interestingly, some key results also offer contrast to the existing literature. For example, while in many studies in different contexts, it has been reported that teachers often focus on improving student score. In Indonesian context, at least in our study, we didn't find similar findings. But our teachers actually emphasize their relationship with students as central to their ideal of teaching, and their focus is on shaping students' characters and transmitting values, which often include nationalism or religious values, rather than maximizing test score. And then most teachers in our sample also had a long-term motivation to become teachers and were committed to pursue a full career as teachers. Even for those initially choose teaching as their last resort, they mentioned that they have this long-term commitment. This is quite contrast, of course, with what had been reported previously, such as in Chile, where novice teacher attrition is quite high, especially during the first 5 years of teaching. And on that note, actually, civil servant status is seen as central to our teachers' professional integrity, and their commitment to staying in the profession is basically because of this civil servant status. And teachers see themselves as civil servant officer first, and then as an educator second. So this can be understood due to the recruitment, deployment, and management of teachers that has always been part of the general civil servant system. But we all know that teaching profession has different traits from the rest of civil servant service, and ideally it has to be handled separately. I think that's all I can share with you in this presentation, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A session. Thank you for listening.